Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I'm a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on March 24th, 2023 at approximately 4:25 p.m. PST. Now, I return to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people, of course, you're going to interrupt me, that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the exact same tools I personally work with in my day to day life. And the philosophies of life that I talk about are the ones I personally live by. This is not meant as a here's a path you can follow to make your life better. I'm going that direction. Okay. Now, just a quick note, if you've got questions, even if they are not in the same topic we're talking about, please put them in the chat room, but put them in all caps so I can find them. Too many times I end up missing a question because it's put in small. Okay. Now, that said, putting it in all caps is not to me screaming at me. It is simply putting your hand up and waving. Now, before I go any further, Adam has come in with the gold, and Adam, do make sure you pay attention while you're out there on the roads. No point in getting yourself into trouble. Shadow, welcome aboard. You come in with the silver. And Henry, you're in with the bronze. Eternity comes right behind him with the honorable mention. And we still have Nathan showing up. And Nathan is in here. And Joe, welcome aboard. Hopefully your guys' day has been going well enough. You know, it's been a little bit of a hectic. Apparently, we cannot speak today. It has been a bit of a hectic day, but we will see how that goes. I came to the conclusion I did come in here with the intention, and let's see if we put this. Where is the other little detail? I required that one up. Okay, what do we got? Like I said, we were going to take a look at some of the technologies that are available. Understand something very, very important. Okay, the primary difference between off-worlders, ancient races, and humans is the type of toys they have. Okay, is the access they've got to different energies, or more to the point that they've capitalized on. The thing we have to remember is, yes, mankind has absolutely, in my opinion, taken some ideas from off-worlders. But two things to get very clear right off the bat. Mankind is not relying on off-worlders to come up with new technology. Okay, mankind has been emulating other races and other peoples, other species, almost since its beginning. Okay, and can we please agree on one little detail? Reptilians are not infiltrating the major corporations as leaders in industry, nor are they members of the royal family or anything along that line. Okay, royal family, so-called elite families, none of it. Okay, all of that stuff, all of that about the reptilians, and we are going to get into some of their tools and what have you. But all of that comes from about 1977 to 1982 when Hollywood came up with a brilliant concept. Okay, and they did a series and a movie. I think a couple of movies, in all fairness, called V. Now you got to remember, reptilians first and foremost that I'm aware of, there are about a dozen different races I've personally dealt with. Okay. And rest assured, if they actually wanted to take over the planet and the consortium didn't get in their way, their fight with you would be over way before you knew anything about it starting. Okay, so let's start with the biggest chunk of technology that is pertinent to that statement. Okay, Now, I just want to see what's going on here. Okay. Now, first and foremost, the one piece of technology that we have to realize, yes, reptilians on the whole are an aggressive race. They are, by and large, carnivorous. Not only carnivorous, they are cannibalistic, they are carrion eaters. In other words, they don't bury their dead, they eat their dead. Unless said dead is killed by toxins. At which point they won't eat it, they'll throw it into a fusion reactor and utilize the energy that way. But you got to remember, these are people that are born to a violent way of life. Mankind, in all fairness, if you think about it, mankind on the whole are nomadic still to this day. Okay, mankind is still nomadic. We are still hunters and gatherers, not warriors. Although people are, and I call it playing at war games, because as it was put to me by many of the off-worlders, many of the off-worlders look at me and go, I don't get it. Humans say that they are really good at war. We hear this all the time on their airwaves. But how can they consider themselves good at war if they still have a population increase? Okay, they're not doing it right. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm 100% against war. War has never brought peace. It does not, on the whole, enhance the economy or people's creative abilities. Now, that funny piece of technology I was talking about, I got talking to one of the people in their military, of the upper military, and they laid it out very nicely. They have a piece of equipment, which is it creates a subquantum EMP pulse. Now, understand, if they were going to war, first thing they do is fire that thing off from about the orbit of Mars. Given that distance, it's got enough range for the emanation to hit the entirety of the planet, the entirety of Earth. Now, because of that, because it's a subquantum, it covers all the way through the planet at the same time. Okay, but it doesn't just interrupt the electronics. And what it does is alters the subquantum superstructure of every electronic component. Your wiring, your speakers, your batteries, anything that is electronically built, or is designed to run electronics, computer chips, all of them fry, all at the same time. This means your radar installations, your missile silos, all of them cease working. Okay, I'm just looking at what Joe has written in here. He goes, I went to my doctor's Wednesday morning, physical, everything went fine. HPV was fine. They took blood this morning. I called back about the blood they took from me. You wanted it back? I don't think they return it. They said my LCL was high and my kidney and liver cells were high too. Cholesterol high, and they suggested a change in my diet. Well, in all fairness, Joe, changing your diet, you got to remember, it's not just a question, and I am no medical doctor. Okay, but absolutely look at your diet and compare to what they're suggesting, but do your own research. Okay, by changing my diet, I ended up dropping my cholesterol, dropping my weight, putting my own body back in order on the whole. Now, this is without the addition of extra medication. However, how you doing there, Dogface? Glad you could join us. However, remember, any change in your diet, anything you're doing regarding your health, do it in tandem with the doctors. Okay. Theoretically, the doctors have an idea what they're dealing with. They've probably spent more time looking into it than you have. But don't forget, we're not just talking medical doctors. We are talking nutritionists, naturopaths, people that have grown up on the land. Okay, just a couple of things to be aware of. Now, this technology that I'm referring to, okay, as far as this subquantum EMP pulse, this is the way they take out the complications. Now, let's not forget something very important here. When that pulse goes off, it also knocks out the navigation computers on the space stations and any satellite in order. Okay, net result, you start getting these things dropping from orbit. Okay, and if you think about it, without nuclear fallout, you've got about 3,500 150 kiloton bombs with no fallout, aside from the amount of dirt that gets thrown into the air by impact. Okay, now this is just one of those things that we have to look at. So for mankind to go, oh, we're going to stop everything. Whoa. Terry, the answer is definitively yes. Terry's just asked, can spirits kill people? And the answer is they absolutely can. But usually the reason is not because they're trying to kill somebody, although that does happen. Usually it's because of the fact that a spirit is running on a much higher frequency. And when it passes through the body, it can cause a disruption in the bioelectric field, in the biomagnetic field of the human body. Net result, causing a short, which stops your autonomic systems, stops the heart, stops the lungs, and your body just all of a sudden doesn't work anymore. Okay. Now, fortunately, there aren't many that actually are intent on killing people, although I have run into a few. Okay. And again, guys, before we really get underway, do me a favor. And when I'm just going to restate this, when you've got a question, put it in all caps. It makes it so much easier for me to find it. Well, you know, Joe, that's pretty much the way I look at it. If you're feeling fine, absolutely pay attention to what your body's doing. Absolutely do. But if it's working, let's face it, you theoretically know more about your body than they do. You just may not have the quantifiable information. But this doesn't change the fact, I will tell you, absolutely, if you trust the doctor enough, go to the doctor. Myself, I don't know, haven't been to a doctor in years. Had a stroke, they told me I had a heart attack, they told me I couldn't have known it was a heart attack. After they confirmed it, doctors told me I'd be, 4 to 6 months getting out of the hospital when I had my stroke. That worked well, it took me 6 days. 8 days. 2 to get out for a day pass. But no, the fact of the matter is, if you're still breathing, okay, this is a plus. Now, when we are looking at the off-worlders and the ancient races, okay, that's the first thing you look at. Is if you're looking at war, mankind trying to upload anything like they showed in Independence Day, trying to upload anything off of our computers onto off-world computers, we got to understand that is akin to trying to upload information off of an abacus into our computers. Somehow I can see the interface being a bit of a problem. Okay, so we look at that and we go, okay, that's part of the technology that we're looking at. Now go way back in the past and we take a look at a funny little piece of equipment. I wonder if I actually have the name of it. I don't know if I do, and if I don't, I'm going to have to get that into it today. Where are we? That one. Nope, don't have it. So that's got to be added. Okay, we go way back to early man. Early man, the Egyptians. At this point, about 7,000 years ago. Okay, the Ennead brought the knowledge of an interesting machine. Okay, I do have to go back through my notes, but it was based on the Ankh. This was a medical tool that was literally designed to operate inside the body without breaking the skin. Far more, if you will, what's the word I'm looking? Far more sterile than today's world. You know, this is just one of the toys, and I am including the reason I mentioned I've got to go back through my notes is because that particular tool, like many others, are being included in the races of the world. Some of the other equipment that we are talking about, let us see here. Oh, okay, that's what I wanted there. By the way, this is a lousy rendition. Again, my artwork is nothing to write decent things home about. This is the little tool I was talking about. Okay. And it is the tool this is what they've used for medical purposes. Okay. Now, the nice part about what we got here. Oh, there we go. Joe's asking, during the daytime, how can you tell if you've seen a real life witch, not someone dressed up for Halloween witch, a real person? Well, there's a couple of things that seem to be in common with them, but this is not a fail-safe. Okay. Honestly, the way that I can tell them usually is because of the fact they feel different. But appearance-wise, they do tend to avoid more of the technological side of things. Okay. Most of their jewelry will be more of a nature base. It'll be either crystalline or they may be dealing with things that have feathers on them as in natural components, more so than electric ones. The odds of them wearing a watch are not good, of wearing an actual watch, although most of them today will still carry a cell phone. Okay. But it's more the bearing. Okay, they will be much more, you'll find they get along a lot better with animals than they do with people. Okay, they will turn and talk to an animal much sooner than they will talk to a person. Okay, primarily because, and they'll tell you the same thing, animals are absolutely honest. Funny thing with a true witch is it's when you talk to them that you get to have an idea of whether or not they're real. If they're talking to you about spellcasting at all, understand a true witch will never alter somebody else's perception. Okay, in other words, you go into a true witch for a love potion because you really desire this woman to come to you. They won't give it to you. Okay, they won't give you a spell or a ritual to override somebody else's affections. They will give you something that will enhance your own view of yourself and the energy you personally put out. Oh, where did that funny thing go? There it is. Well, that's interesting. I will have to deal with that. But that'll have to wait until after the show. Anyway, a true witch will not turn around and give you something to override somebody else's desires. Okay, it just won't happen. Now, okay, Adam is asking, He goes very off topic. Do you think the Dwemer from the Elder Scrolls zero sum are human able to zero sum in the real world? Now, here's an odd little question. Don't know what zero summed means. Okay. So, are humans able to zero sum in the real world? I do not know what zero sum is, so you're going to have to bring that. I've never heard the term before. So, until I get that info, I'm going to have a problem giving you an answer. Okay. With that in mind, I will tell you that the one thing I can tell you, yeah, I don't doubt that. And hopefully Henry will pipe up and fill us in. I can tell you this though, from what I do play Elder Scrolls now, and the Dwemer are they are a stylized version of the Barandi. Okay, or more likely they're a stylized version of the Barandi Gar. Okay, but are they a real race? Yes, they are underground, as Skyrim portrays, but their appearance is stylized. Okay, their attitude not so much. Okay, this is the funny thing about a lot of the things that people put in these games. Many of them are actually transferable. Okay, they are actually trackable to the ancient races or to off-world races that people have seen and may not consciously require or consciously remember. Okay, but that's where a lot of that comes from. Okay, now are they, do they have a, shall we say, a bit of a violent tendency? Oh yeah, just a little. So when you're looking at that, so now back and forth, where I can see this whole topic is going to go this way, which is okay. I can work with that quite readily. Now let us see what we got here. Go back to not that. Okay. Now, when we take a look at the power systems, now do understand, mankind is emulating a lot of the equipment they get and that they're working on based on what they've seen in other races. Okay, in other unidentified craft or unrecognized races. Okay, mankind is tapping into these things and they are running into them. So and while they're telling you, we don't know what you're talking about, they're capitalizing on it and trying to upgrade their own systems. Problem is, much of the information that the off-worlders have is based on technology that is based on basic scientific principles that go so far beyond mankind, human can, that humans cannot emulate it yet, which is probably a good thing, by the way. You think about it, with man's violent tendencies, what happens if you give them planet buster technology? They start pushing buttons until something pops. In this case, the core of the planet, at which point we may have a bit of a problem. Won't be long-lived, but it will be a problem. Okay. Now, the OTE drive, which is the star drive that many of the races use. Hate that. It's a star drive that many races used, or still use. It was developed back on the Atlantean, from the Atlanteans. Quite frankly, they built it and they built it after they got here because they knew they had to get off the planet again. So they built the baseline technology for it to create an oxygen, a field that would trap oxygen. Now, needless to say, if it's a solid enough field to trap oxygen, they had to also build they also had to build an oxygen generator, or more to the point, an atmosphere generator that could pull independent components out of the ether. Okay, they literally would pull the null environment together and yank the elements they needed in order to configure a breathable atmosphere. Now, this can be programmed to any lung capacity, to any breathing method, be it gaseous, be it photonic, as in light-based, liquid-based, doesn't matter. Okay, now needless to say, there aren't any races I'm aware of that breathe hard matter. There are many that will consume hard matter and breathe the oxygen generated from within it. I mean, you take a look at it. Okay, just one example of a way of doing that is if you've got an entity that can eat pumice, okay, and crush the pumice. There's a lot of holes in pumice, and if you can crush the pumice and thereby get kind of a semi-powdered and powdered air or gas, if you will, then you've got a race that can deal with that. Can I tell you which one at this point? The answer is no. Okay, that's just the reality behind that. Okay, now with that in mind, the OT drive, also known as the oscillator densification and the tri-translocation equilarity, okay, is the key to that being done. Now, that was built by the Atlanteans, okay, while they were on Earth. Okay, and rest assured, Atlantis was not a single location, but that's a whole different topic. Okay, now we go back up here, and we have this neat little thing called a gravitellar beam. Okay. Okay, well, that's an interesting way of putting it. I will tell you, you do that, it's just asking for a problem. Henry's come back in here, and thank you very much for that, Henry. Henry came back and he goes, the Dwemer chief, the Dwemer chief royal craftsman, basically poked God's heart with a hammer, and him and the whole race just disappeared instantly. I will tell you, pick a fight with an entity that can create universes in a heartbeat, you're just not going to come out well. Okay, that being said, can the Dwemer actually rematerialize on Earth? No. Okay, like I said, from everything I've seen, I do play the game, so in this case, I actually do know what I'm looking at. Okay, the Dwemer are a stylized Baron de Gar. The reason I say stylized is, well, they don't look right, but the Baron de Gar are anywhere from 5 to 5.5 feet tall, maybe a little taller on occasion. They're still wiry, and they are being included in book 2. Okay, I don't know. I should have checked. I do with it. I don't know if I actually have them in here. Angelus. No, I don't have them printed off, which isn't surprising. Ran into a lack of ink causing hiccup. Yeah, when you start dealing with total manipulation there, Adam, they can appear to disappear, if you will. See, when you actually vibrate at a higher rate, it's much like if you take your hand and you hold it steady, it's vibrating at a certain level. But if you speed the vibration up, okay, it becomes harder to separate. Now, the funny part about it is my hand used to be really worse than that. But when you're looking at tonal modification, it can absolutely screw up the perception. But do they physically relocate? The answer is no. Not from anything I've ever seen. Okay. But I will tell you this: if they tried picking a fight with God, they were asking for a problem. Yeah. The funny thing is, if we want to call them the Dwemer, that's okay. The funny thing is, they didn't exactly disappear. They went deep underground. Okay, they are still the Burundi and the Burundi Gar are still very much part of this world. Okay. And yeah, did they realize they'd created a problem? Yeah, but for the ones that did it, it's not the whole race got punished, because the reality is God doesn't work that way. God doesn't look at the whole race and go, you're all bad. Okay. He gave free will and free choice to each and every one of you. So if you're being decent, if you're treating people the way you desire to be treated, if you're treating other people with respect, and the guy next to you is being an absolute bully, or there's other words that go with that, okay, then it's the one that's causing the problem that's going to get the backlash, not the three guys standing close beside him, or her for that matter. Okay. From that standpoint, that's where you run into an interesting situation. Behind everything you see, everything you read, there is undoubtedly a modicum of truth, or a modicum of fact, if you will. Okay, but you got to remember, quite often, especially in terms of the games that you see, games and movies, there are modifications they make to make them more entertaining. I get a kick out of it when they talk about a documentary, and all of a sudden they've got all these really frightening things. Documentaries should be, in my opinion, fact-based. They should not be used to sensationalize anything. Okay. I mean, absolutely, bring your awareness to whatever is going on. And that's where we really have to look at the open doors. Okay. That is the first thing you have to look at. Is when you take a look at the reality of it all, there is a situation that you're dealing with that these different races, many of them are still absolutely here. Now, I'm looking at this, we've got this thing here that I'm looking at, developed by the Galactic Consortium, is something called the Gravadalor beam. Now, the Gravadalor beam is a weapon unlike anything mankind has even functionally got under their belt, because it literally targets the gravitons. Gravitons are a tiny itty bitty particle, but by enhancing the vibratory rate of the gravitons, a Gravadalor beam can absolutely crush a vehicle, whether it's in the air or on the ground. They can absolutely crush it. Okay. And of course, if you increase the gravity, and you can be very specific with it. Okay. The Gravadalor beam was kind of neat, because when you go back to a game system back in the late 70s, early 80s, and some of you may recognize this one, called Space Opera. Okay, they had a weapon there called the coagulator. Well, the Gravadalor beam is designed to do just that. Increase the gravitational push in order to really clump things together. Okay. And what I mean clump them together, in the case of this thing they call the coagulator, okay, the Gravadalor beam makes and compresses the blood cells. Yeah, see, I didn't actually play Oblivion. Okay. I'm thinking in this case, Adam, that the one that probably has more of the information on how the whole game layout was is probably Shadow and Sun. Okay, I never played Oblivion at all. Okay, and that's not true. I played a little bit of it, but with me and computers, that was before I actually got a handle on any of it. Okay, so can I do much with that? And sad to say, the answer is no. Okay, now, that being said, what do we got here? Oh, yes, now this one, if I am right, and I should be in this case, get that out of the way. Here, I was showing you this one the other day. Okay, this is built by the Zeta Reticulans. Okay, this little toy here is called the Dexospanalizer. This is the tool they use for medical assessment, for DNA extraction, while simultaneously implanting a subdermal tracker. Okay. Funny thing about it is that tracker is designed to dissolve. It is literally designed to dissipate throughout the genetic superstructure of the individual that gets tagged. Hey, Kara, how you doing? Glad you could join us. And thank you so much for taking the time to share your time with us. Just remember, if you're working with anything sharp or anything dangerous, pay more attention to that than you do to the radio or to the internet. Something about don't really like the idea of, somebody losing a finger because they're not paying attention to what they've got to be doing. But no, the Dexospanalizer, if you catch the implant early enough, you can actually have it removed. Okay. If you don't, you can still have it removed. Yeah, that solves that problem. Kira's just going, no sharp objects, only office work. Well, this is a good thing. See, humans have the rare capacity, and every human has this capacity, where you can alter your own vibratory rate and thereby discard the unwanted tracker. And no, you do not have to know where it is. Okay, but let's show you the other thing. You guys may have seen it. Gotta be that one. Yep. Ever see a mark like this? That's the mark, and it'll only be about a 1/4 inch in diameter. Okay, like a 1/4 inch from one side to the other. Roughly. This is the imprint mark. If you've ever seen this on yourself or somebody else, this crossbar down here is where the implant the tracker. But again, it's one of these things that can be removed, okay, if you get it early enough. If not, it will dissipate. Won't do any damage. It is not designed for overriding anybody's body or anybody's mind. Okay, it is strictly designed to relay health information, as in blood pressure, pulse, breathing rate, lung capacity, and how said measurements are geared towards certain activities and certain stresses. Okay. Honestly, the answer is yeah. But the trick is there, Kira. Kira's just asking, are there any implants that you know of that help us? The implants that the Zeta Reticulans use, once you understand the way they broadcast, They can give you all kinds of instant information on how your body is responding. Okay. Now, this is something they don't worry about because it's okay from their perspective for individuals to have it. Are they going to turn over the technology so mankind can use this tech? No. This does not mean that mankind is not working to understand it and thereby, if you will, to reverse engineer it. But the reason the off-worlders won't just turn it over carte blanche is because mankind has a bad habit of using things for a negative side. Some see it depends. Like if the thing is, Kira, there is one, and it's not an implant. What I mean, it's an injection in a sense. But the sea elves, the sea elephant, who happen to live at the bottom of the Marianas Trench, and the reason I was told it's okay to let people know, because mankind still can't get that far. Okay, but they developed a liquid that they could dump into a human's lungs and stop the body from collapsing. And then, of course, once mankind gets up, the stuff is designed and gets back on the surface. The stuff is designed to force the person to expel it. This usually comes out in kind of a viscous, clear or slightly blue colored liquid. Okay, you may liken it to, it would be likened to an odd color bile. Okay, but this is what they use to stop people from dying when they take them down there. Okay, sometimes people are given mechanical apparatus such as a breathing mask or what they often call a rebreather when you're going off world. Because what it does, is it literally is based on that same technology that the Ennead used. It's kind of a combination between the Ennead's construction and the Zeta Reticulans, where this little attachment literally creates oxygen that is human suitable, or with a quick click of a button, if you will. Okay, it can create a breathable atmosphere for multiple races. Okay, each individual rebreather would be programmed for the individual involved. Okay, now, are they interchangeable between people? Yes. Between species? No. Because the reality is half the species don't breathe the same mix of atmosphere. So when we take a look, I'm just looking up here, that's the Dexel Spanalizer. And of course, then we have the other thing that was built by the Egyptians. Or no, my apologies. The other one that was built by the Atlanteans was the Mercacan Amplanet, which is basically a mesh that goes over your head, okay, applying receptors at the temples and right on the third eye, and then one way down here at the back, right at the cerebral cortex. Okay, there are minor variations on them as they get more complicated. Okay, the one ship that is never needed, that they never need to modify the breathing for, is when the Mobians arrive. Mobians breathe the same atmosphere that humans do. Well, it makes sense. Mobians were human to start with. That's when they originated, was here. Now, then we take a look at this funny little thing. Now, people have asked me about communication lines. How do you communicate over long distance? Well, mankind is still relying on line of sight. Okay. The Galactic Consortium does not. Okay. They rely because their equipment will see through a planet and therefore be able to broadcast through that dense material to resurface on the far side and continue on. And again, this is a matter of scientific programming. But this is something called the triphasic transmographer. Okay, which is designed to patch through sound, sound, sight, and physical configuration. Okay, but it's built of three different pieces. Your trisolar cross-core modulator, which is the direct line communication that cuts, and that's the tool. And that, by the way, is being built on Earth. Okay, somebody reverse engineered it, or was given the schematics for it, because mankind doesn't have the power to utilize it to the degree that it can be. They just don't have the power production. Okay, but the trisolar cross-core modulator is designed for communication long distance. Then you've got the Vylar cross-core modulator, which is designed to send visual, like in basically a movie, which can get really, really trippy. Okay, when you start looking at, and we're not talking about cross dimension, because I think I just said that. We're talking about the physical dimension, just extreme distances. Okay, and then the third part is the trifilar cross-core modulator, which is designed for physical relocation, as in what you may know from science fiction movies. You may know it as a transporter. Okay, as in the famous quote, "Beam me up, Scotty." These are just a couple of the tools that these guys are using. And yes, I am putting more together in the list. In the front part. Whoop, gravity works. This is stuff that is being added to, because I don't know. Let me just double check before I stick my foot in my mouth. Yeah, if I look at this, this is a copy of the first edition, the first printing. Okay, but when I start taking a look at it, I don't have the technology in this particular one. If you've already got a copy of Races of the Worlds, the second one, when it comes out, is going to have a heck of a sight lot more. Well, so much for English. See, we've got the title page itself, and then the glossary, and other than that, so what do we got here? Movies, linguistics, technologies, the hybridization program, the Galactic Consortium, and the information therein. So right there, and I'm not done with it yet, right there we have an extra 5 pages of information just in that alone. Okay. So these are just a couple of the tools that these guys have. They do have a lot of Gravadalor technology-based items, not the least of which is jet boots, if you will, that don't require fuel. Okay, they simply operate because of the fact that they use the same idea as the OTE drive does, combined with the Gravadalor in tech. Many, humans do this too. They'll take one technology and merge it with a second one to make something even better. The only functional difference between humans and other races is, quite frankly, the other thing that it is they are simply putting the two techs together in order to make things work a little bit more effectively. Now, these are not things that mankind is just getting handed. Mankind already messed things up when they broke the contracts they signed in the first place. Okay, because when the off-worlders first started striving to hand out information, it was on medical hiccups mankind was running rampant into, and communication lines where linguistics were creating a barrier that was no longer, from the off-worlder standpoint, no longer deemed advantageous. Where are we here? What's that do? Oh, you don't want to do that. That'd be called doing something I really don't want to deal with. But when we are looking at mankind and the technology that is available, okay, understand the big difference between humans and off-worlders at this stage of the game is the level of toys these guys have. Mankind, last I knew, was dealing with 115 or 120 elements on the periodic table. The guys I've dealt with have like 256. Okay, or 250 plus is probably more accurate because they're constantly adding to it. It's just you got to remember, not all elements show up in the same place. It's very much like not all animals will show up in the same environment. This is just the reality of it all. But we've got to realize that mankind has a staggeringly focused ability to create things that are outside the norm if they get out of their way and start actually working on it. Okay, this is something that is very critical. Okay, something very necessary from that standpoint. Because if you don't pay attention to it, then you run into all kinds of hiccups. Where are we? Adam is just asking, out of those elements, how can they sustain power indefinitely? That's the easy part. Okay, and I'll make it as simple as I can. Okay, and hopefully this will make sense. Now, when we're talking about the permanent, inexhaustible source of energy, we have to go to basic science and the simplest of all atoms that mankind knows. Okay, which is hydrogen. Now, hydrogen only has one electron, and it's already been proven. Don't ask me how they turned around and proved it. But it's already been proven that the electrons will leave one atom at its own rate and then connect with another one. But mankind has dictated, but this is because they don't know any better. Okay, mankind has dictated that hydrogen atoms are the smallest atom. They've only got one electron. They're missing one, and they haven't pieced it together yet. But when an electron when a hydrogen atom with one electron is released, when the electron is released, the hydrogen atom becomes what some people call ether, some people call null energy. What it is an atom without an electron. Okay. But this is the major component of interatomic space. So when that electron leaves the hydrogen atom turns into a null atom. Okay, it's got no electrons to power it, but it still has a physical substance on the subquantum field. Now, when that electron is traveling to the next atom, if that one lone electron connects with a hydrogen atom, thereby giving the hydrogen atom, 2 electrons, you're now dealing with helium. Okay, and because of that, what you've got to remember is the electron itself when it's passing through that and through that null energy, through that ether field, okay, that traveling electron is creating a shock wave in front of it. And it's that shock wave that the OTE drive picks up on and draws the power off of it. Okay. But conversely, it does the same thing when you take the fractal inversion into consideration to slow the whole system down. Because the OTE drive just does not have an upper limit that anybody's found. It just keeps accelerating, which is absolutely fine, providing you remember how to navigate. If you don't, you're going to have a very short impact. Okay, but this is one of those technologies mankind has got to figure out that if they pool their resources, they will make far better headway in this idea of getting into the different world, getting out to the different worlds. You know, this is what I'm referring to about the energy patterns. Now, the funny thing is there, Adam, the elements themselves, like maybe I misread this earlier, but the individual elements themselves do not maintain power. They don't sustain power, period. Like some will store power. Quartz crystal is not an element, at least not as far as I'm aware, but it does store energy quite nicely. The crystalline energy and the crystalline matrix makes the transition of energy very convenient and very long lasting. But we got to remember, it's not a question of one thing being indefinite. You got to remember that anytime you have moving parts, doesn't matter if they're moving because they're electrical moving or because they're mechanical parts that are moving. Anytime you're running an excess of energy into an actual physical construct, you're going to run into wear and tear. Okay, but this is something that can be compensated for. Now, I'm hoping this is making sense to you guys. Okay, I know it was really weird from my standpoint when I first found out about what was possibly going to be done with it. The neat part about it is if you take that energy, those floating electrons, and you redirect the you redirect the electrons. Okay, you can create a massive stream of absolutely devastating subquantum elements. Okay, or subquantum activity. And you picture the speed that an electron travels. Put a whole pile of those up in sequence. Okay, you put a whole pile of them up in sequence, and you can do some serious damage. Okay, not the least of which is short-out systems that are kind of critical for most people. I don't know. Let's knock out life support. Actually, relatively simple to do it. Okay, I like what Adam put up here. No, not Adam. Where are we here? There we are. Yeah, it was Henry. Henry's just informing us that the older coating that was made of electrum, which is an alloy of gold and silver. Okay. Again, this is one of those neat little things where I pick up little bits and pieces of information because I am not a researcher. I tried looking the other day, and I just get a little lost in my own little world, I think. But these are the changes that we have to come to realize. When we work with each other, we can capitalize on them a whole lot more readily. Okay, and make this world a much better place to live. But we gotta start looking at each other as equals. not as, not as being better than. There we go. Just figured I better open the window, so I stepped out of the way so I could. But no, understand, every race builds ships themselves that work for their way of looking at it. Okay, you take a look at the Korlock. Okay, if you ever watched the Space Odyssey, watched 2001: A Space Odyssey, they show you a rectangular ship. It is essentially a real ship. Okay, but you gotta understand, humans will never get physically inside it. Okay, at least not and still have it work. The reason for that is because the Korlock ship is actually powered by the biomagnetic flux of the Korlock race. Of the members that are on board that ship. Their own biofield is what operates their entire system, including things like life support. Which I don't know about you, but without life support, you're pretty much in rough shape. Now, Henry's asking, can earth metals be used for ship hulls? Can you disclose possible ship hull alloys? I'd love to. Problem is, I don't know where it comes to the alloys. I can tell you this: earth elements can absolutely be utilized. One of the things that people have to realize is if you take crystalline superstructure such as quartz and merge it into the right metals, okay, then what you will have is a much more energetically sufficient, much more energetically efficient ship. Okay. It also, if you take the same idea and you make any adjustment to the alloys to make the surface reflective, silver is a great way of doing it. Okay, if you don't have access to force field generation, then coating the hull of the ship in a definitive silver or reflective coating, it will absolutely help with that kind of transition. But see, a lot of the time when you're looking at ships, mankind has come to the conclusion that for a vehicle to work, it must be completely made of metal. And this could not be much further from the truth. Okay. But I will tell you this: it's easier to form metal into a starship than it is to form wood into a starship. Okay. Although if you build a satellite out of wood when re-entries, you really don't have to worry about it. But yeah, many of the Earth elements can be used. Understand, a lot of them are a much denser material than the upper energies are, and thereby they're easier to work with. Okay, because I will tell you, you get into the real complicated one, into the real complicated elements, and all of a sudden you've got a problem. They don't respond well to being forced. When you deal with the lower vibratory ones, you can force them a little bit more safely. Okay. And yes, by the way, if you know anything about metal itself, I've seen them before. I actually have never made one. But an amethyst, specifically a chevron amethyst, wrapped in silver coil and held over your solar plexus, like just hung over your solar plexus, will enhance the energetic connectivity to the planet, thereby, and I don't have any stats for this. Okay, so let's not go asking for the proof. That's your guys' job. Okay. But you hang it right in front of your solar plexus, aka your heart chakra, you can actually accelerate the healing and the stabilization of your body. Okay, this is not something you have to rely on with other people. Doctors and scientists do not have to be the ones to deal with this. You can go down to your own local metaphysical shop, find Chevron Amethyst. And if you don't know what that is, talk to the clerk. The theory is they'll know. But basically, it boils down to a purple stone with an angular sort of stylized V in dark purple. This is an amplifier. Okay, not only does it amplify, but it also transmutes the energy. All in all, making it work quite well and helping balance you and bringing your stress level down. Okay, and let us not forget, and I've shown you this one before. Okay, off-worlders are quite happy with the whole concept of working with crystals. Okay, now that's moldavite. Okay, and it is fabulous for connecting to the star-based energies. Do understand, we are getting bombarded with this stuff on a small particular basis, on a constant particulate basis. Something you do have to remember is when you're looking at the alloys, okay, understand the fact that it's on Earth does not mean it's the only way to do it. There is also, and I know the scientists are working on this, okay, they're working on a way to alter the overall electron signature of various different tools, thereby making them much more powerful, much more effective, much quicker, much more analytically accelerated, and a number of other things. If you go into the research itself with the eye of how can this benefit man, not how can this overthrow our enemies. Okay, if you're still of the vibratory mentality that goes, we've got to prepare for war, you're missing the point. That's just the reality is most of the off-world races are no longer as war-based as they used to be. There are still conflicts. Like I said, reptilians are, and people talk about the alpha drakes. Well, it's not alpha drakes are uncooperative. It's that they literally feel, as a race, they should be in control of everybody. They should have control of whatever is out there because they're that good. Now, I will tell you, this creates its own complications. Where are we? Honestly, Joe, I have seen these craft hover close enough that you could run your forehead into the undercarriage, especially if they've got the wheels down. Okay, and by the way, most of the UFOs do not have wheels that come down. They have stabilizing platforms. Okay, and that is just because they don't require them to be up in the air 15 feet. All they require is enough room to be able to get back off the planet. Okay, and that's where some of this advanced technology comes in handy. But we have to remember that people are inherently, humans on the whole have been taught to fear what they don't understand. Now, a UFO, and I've seen it done before, can show up right in front of you. I was talking to somebody just the other day that had an orb this size show up right in front of their face. Right. They didn't see it coming in, just all of a sudden there it was. Well, I guess you could put it that way. It's kind of backwards though, Adam. Like Adam's just going, do some races have cloaking devices similar to Klingons or Romulans? Technically, it's the other way around. That Gene Roddenberry, who was an absolute visionary, okay, took these cloaking devices and figured out how they work. In all fairness, Earth has this cloaking device on a smaller scale. Okay, because what they do, and you can look it up yourself. Look up trucking in Japan, and I mean long haul trucking in Japan. The semi trailers in Japan, and don't take my word for it. Go and look it up. Okay, on the front of the tractor trailer, they have a camera that takes a picture and posts and relays it to the back of the truck, in order that if you're coming behind them on the road, you look at that screen and it projects right in front of you where what is coming towards the truck. Now understand, with Terran technology, they leave a border around the edge of the thing on the back of the truck. This is a good thing, because you kind of want to know the truck's there. With the off-worlders, it's seamless. Okay, and they've got it set up on all fronts. It's just that simple. Hey, Kimberly, how you doing? Glad you could join us. So, yeah, do they have cloaking devices? The answer is yes. Do some of them have the ability to cloak the individual person? The answer is also yes. And then you've got some that are telepathic and simply put an overlay in so you can't see them while you're looking at them. These are things that mankind has the capacity to do. And the bits and pieces are known around the world. But because mankind is so caught up in how do I make myself different from other people, how do I stand out as a unique individual, okay, they aren't sharing scientific knowledge. Thereby, it is these people that have access to the stuff, because of greed and fear, are not actually advancing as quickly as they could. This is why I say we have got to start looking at the similarities and focusing on that. Well, hello. Yeah. I got birds outside my front window. Don't mind me. As I've told people, I like animals more than I like people most of the time. But yeah, a lot of these technologies that you see in various movies, okay, are absolutely on the money. I always get a kick out of, and I forget which one it was. Somebody out there recognizes this quote. Dave, what are you doing? Or what are you up to? I forget the name of the movie, to be honest with you. Okay. I'm sort of thinking it was Space Odyssey, but I'm not honestly certain. Okay. I do remember a time there, Henry, where birds were not necessarily the thing you wanted to have around. Thank you so much there, Nathan. Always nice to know I hit the movie from the past in the right order sometimes. And yeah, I know that was, I think, the HAL 9000 or something to that effect. Oh yeah, a lot of the birds. I mean, I remember many lifetimes ago. we used to have slightly bigger birds we worried about. Things like the Phorahawkus, the Moa, the Deinonychus. Okay, these were birds. But I'll tell you, you want a turkey leg? There's a leg and a half. Just reading what Joe's written here. Joe's written, I've had orbs in front of me, 5 feet away, in the dark outside, sitting. I've had the photos to believe they were orbs. They had to have been. Well, in all fairness, most of the orbs that show up on film are usually dust particulates that are reflecting things. Now, that said, okay, there is a race that, I kid you not, the full orb, and it's a ship, is about that big in diameter. Okay, about the size of realistically about the size of a honeydew melon or a cantaloupe. Okay, and yes, those are one-man shuttles. Well, the Kinlar run them. Nope, that's wrong. It is not the Kinlar that run those. Okay, let us take a peek because I got it right here. I am looking for the gecko, and there we are, the Zotar. Okay. And yes, we do have, I do actually have the Zotar again. This book is growing rather rapidly. I'll be working on it more tonight because we've got the 5 races I just dropped off with my artist, and I've got 4 more. So I've got to get this dealt with for obvious reasons. Okay. But with that in mind, and here's another complete sidetrack, guys. This funny little book here. Okay. I've got somebody looking, and this is Believe in Yourself and Follow Your Dreams. The backbone to how I changed my life from where it was going to where it is today. But I have somebody looking into doing an audio version of this for me. Okay. As it is, this can be ordered straight from me. I do take PayPal. Okay. Still fighting with web designers to actually do what they were supposed to, but I know they're going to blame me for it anyway, which is really neat when you think about it. But the technology that we have, the only functional difference between the stuff that mankind has and I have to deal with this, so I will be right back, guys. Cameron. Oh, I have no idea. Yeah. Well, that worked out well. I'm back. Actually, his mother. But yeah, because even if I turn my phone off, there are a few people that I have put on emergency bypass so that if they need to get a hold of me, they can. Okay. The difference between an orb and a dust particle is, number one, you'll never see a dust particle this big in diameter. Okay, or even for that matter, that big in diameter. Dust particles don't get that size. Okay, but they do show up on film where you may not see them because they end up reflecting light in the sunlight. Net result, you can get some pretty fascinating pictures. Okay, with the actual orbs, and there are a number of different ways those can show up. The actual ship will be about that big. There is a race now, which is it? Oh, the Verozic. The Verozic are a floating race all on their own. Okay, now I do have, and I don't recall the name offhand, There are little rods, which are another type of race that look and that kind of shows up and is very difficult to piece together. But it's because they don't use technology; they simply are that size. Okay, it was funny. I was actually in the middle of doing some writing, and it suddenly dawned on me the entire birth cycle of a Caboran. Okay, and it's fascinating to watch it. But I'm in the middle of writing a piece out, and this is being included in the second printing. Kira is saying, "Is there an orb race that is very small and looks like like water orbs?" And yeah, well, honestly, there is. They are literally water elementals. Okay, but they're children, and they look very much like droplets of water. Okay, because you got to remember, most people think of elements. Okay, and I'm working on the translation for the name. The cordon is your earth elemental, but the little water droplets that you're talking about, they look like a drop of water floating there. Those are baby earth elementals. Okay. Yeah, you can play with them. That's the neat part about it. Again, you're dealing with children. So as long as you're not batting violently at them, you might, I wouldn't bet on it, but it's possible you'll make contact. Okay. Now understand something very critical before you start getting upset about it. If you touch a baby elemental, you may pop its surface structure. This does not kill them. Okay. Often confuses them for a while they try and figure out how to reconstitute themselves. Okay. But quite often, as a matter of fact, if you pay attention, if you're in the shower, okay, they will. There are times when you'll find that a water elemental will show up there. But much like you may be watching the elemental out of curiosity, they're returning the favor. Yeah, they would, because you got to remember the humidity in the forest is much higher in most cases than in other locations. Okay, you won't often find a water elemental in the middle of the desert. Okay, although it is fascinating when they do. They usually get very, very agitated really quick. Okay, but do they exist? The answer is absolutely yes. Now, can't imagine why, but most of their technology, and they do use technology, or what you would call technology, they just refer to it as manipulated hydrolysis. Okay. And yes, a water elemental can easily cause hydroxia in a human. All they have to do is absolutely turn around and draw the oxygen, or they draw the oxygen out of the system fast enough to create more water. They imbue oxygen and hydrogen into the lung cavity of a corporeal organism, and the individual will drown. Okay. Nixies are another one of these races that, though they are not elementals themselves, certainly have control over the water elements, over liquid elements. Okay. And yeah, when you start looking at Nixies, which are related to pixies, the various different types can manipulate various different types of liquid. Okay. By the way, they usually like to stick with the cooler types. Okay, not things like, gee, let's manipulate magma, because that always ends well for somebody with gossamer wings. But the reality is, so many people have looked at races that are, if you will, they are humanoid. because mankind seems to have trouble figuring out that humans are not the most common configuration. As a matter of fact, in all fairness, the bipedal form is actually a very unstable form. Okay, the tripedal form is a much more stable form, like your Vulcans, which actually have 3 legs. Okay, are a much sturdier race, much more stable race, rather, than humans are. Okay, and this again, when we're looking at technology, we have to realize that there are things beyond technology. If you've got the capacity, if you've got a vehicle, for instance, running on hydrocarbons, which is what mankind uses, and you get somebody that can ignite the hydrocarbons at a distance by simply thinking about it, okay, all of a sudden that vehicle of yours is no longer a luxury. It's a luxury line or death trap. But this is why it is really imperative people remember to treat each other properly, to treat each other as you desire to be treated. Now, we listen, people listen and are told you can't do this, you can't do that, and so much technology gets buried because of the fact it's going to cut into the profit line. Okay, this is just categorically wrong in my eyes. It's just a wrong maneuver that is more detrimental to the human race than anything else. Yeah, see, where it comes to that, Kira, there are 3 karmic laws that are equally important. Be true to yourself first. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. And energy out, energy in. Okay, now be kind falls into that second one. If you desire people to be kind to you, be kind to them. This does not guarantee that this will have them be kind to you, but it certainly stacks the deck in your favor. It's just unfortunately so many people buy into the other side of it. They buy into the idea of, oh, I can't do this for that person because are they going to return the same favor? And that is a backwards way of looking at it and rather self-defeating. Okay. I am curious, Kira. Now, you said here you used to see. Hey, YJ, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Yeah, you don't want to do that. Yeah. YJ goes, hey, folks, I have a spell in a book about how to make fairies able visible. It involves a Saturday night, a full moon, chanting specific words, a few things to do with beforehand and during. Never tried it. Suggestion. Just a thought, just a thought there, YJ. Forcing a creature or an individual into a visible situation, okay, against their will, is a good way to get yourself into trouble. Because much as fairies look really, really neat, they look really cute and lovable, they're not likely to take kindly to it. Okay. See, there are entities out there that I haven't dealt with, I haven't gone and expressed. Not the least of which, and I do not recall the name offhand, but I am making a note of it to remember. Let's just see here. Proper sheet of paper so I can go looking for it again. See, here's the thing. If you're in the woods and you're in the middle of forcing a fairy to pop them into the open, okay, yeah, YJ goes, oh, I have no intention of pursuing that. Nope. Wouldn't want someone to do that to me, so I wouldn't do it to them either. See, here's the neat thing, and I did see this happen once. It was, well, that would be just twisted. I was going to say it was kind of funny, but it really wasn't. Okay. There was an individual I knew of that tried forcing, he went into the woods, performed a ritual to force the fairy to show themselves, which was a cute thought, but he probably should have picked a different forest. Because the one thing you got to remember, Arboreans will protect the fairies. They absolutely will. Okay. This guy happened to pick a forest that was chock full of ironwood. The unfortunate part is that when he forced the fairy into visibility, an ironwood Arborean slapped him. He did not survive the landing. In all fairness, I don't think he survived the impact. Okay, but if you know anything about not about Arboreans, about ironwood, extremely dense wood. Okay, quite frankly, from what I gather, it's one wood that cannot float. Okay, because it's that dense. But you don't want to go forcing these things into the open. Okay, there are other entities, like I said. I just made a note for myself to go looking through my notes to find the fairy, the protector of the fairy. Okay, and when you look at the protector, this thing will tear you apart limb from limb. The problem is it won't grab you by the wrist and tear your arm off. It'll start small and work up from there. Okay, these ancient races did not survive because they were meek. They survived because they didn't want to fight anymore. And that is what mankind is going to have to do in order for this society to turn around. Yeah, I mean, I love the way YJ that it was said in Jurassic Park. So, scientists are so concerned with what they can do, they seldom consider whether they should do it. Okay, and this is just the whole thing. It's like, should we create a way to travel forward in time? You're not going to travel backwards, but should mankind find a way to travel forward in time? In my opinion, not a real brilliant idea, though it does happen periodically, quite by accident. That's something else that you got to remember. The Faerie have a really neat little tool, and it's technically a technology. Okay. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of fairy rings. Okay. But fairy rings are way, way, way too real. Okay. And they are properly charged, which means when you walk through them, you may not even realize you walk through them. And you end up being shunted forward in time. Okay. Or because it's not so much you get shunted forward as you get stomped and the world passes on around you. And then you carry on without even knowing it. Okay. So it's not a question of being forced forward in time. It's being stopped cold so you don't recognize the time is progressing. That's the big issue around it. What do we got here? YJ's just writing, we've got some pretty interesting old magic books. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Funny thing is that the Rainbow Bridge actually exists. Okay. And yes, the Nords did actually figure out how to use it. Okay. Do they 100% control it? Only from their end. That Rainbow Bridge they're talking about is a conduit, not between realities, but between other third dimensional locations. Okay. And I mean, they call them different realms, but let's face it. You go, like I'm up in Canada, and you go from Canada to the Middle East. It's like walking into a different world. You go into the Australian outback, and you are so far out of your element, you wouldn't know if you were in a different world or just a different environment. Okay. Oh, Henry, the answer there is absolutely. That entire Nordic pantheon is very real. Yeah, the Bifrost, I mean, let's face it, we've got different names for different things. Okay. I mean, you think about it, and I don't speak many languages. I speak bits and pieces of all kinds of them. But if you think of a hat, English people can call it a hat. French people call it a chapeau. Okay. But the thing is, it's the same thing. So whether it's called the Bifrost fridge or whether it's called the Bifrost fridge. We now have an interspatial, kitchen setup. Ultimately, you are correct there, YJ. See, the thing with the rainbow bridge is, and this applies to every rainbow and every color you ever see, and those that you don't. But every color vibrates at its own rate. It all has its own, every color has their own sound and their own smell. Okay. They also all have their own texture. Now, not many people can actually differentiate color by texture. Okay, they do exist. It's just another one of those senses. But it really doesn't matter what name you put on it. This is why I caution people. The names that I work with, where it comes to the other races, sometimes they are simply, and they are literally what I've been told, sometimes they're names that fit to help people understand what we're dealing with. And sometimes they are an assessment of phonetic reality. Okay. Now, you got to remember, when we're dealing with the Nords, aka the Norse god pantheon, where we have where you have the Rainbow Bridge, etc. Okay. What you've got, what you've got is a group of people that have technology way above and beyond what mankind has. Okay. You take a look at Mjolnir. Now, Mjolnir was made with one purpose: destruction. Can it be used for a positive use? Absolutely, if it is controlled properly. But all of these technologies exist. Mankind does have the capacity to piece them together. But mankind's got to start thinking in a slightly different fashion. Because the way they're doing it right now, they're still under the understanding that I've got to have all the information myself. I've got to do it all myself, and I'm not giving my secrets to anybody. Not a problem there, Kira. We kind of have to look at the work issue and go, well, I'm not sure, but I like having a roof over my head. I'm thinking that's a drive for most people. Okay. And, I've always held family first, work second, entertainment third. Okay. You take care of the necessities. Now, yes, sometimes work has to take precedence over family just because you got to get the bills paid. Because I don't know, I don't live a real extraordinary life, but I certainly don't look forward to the idea of being on the street. Yeah, Kira goes, I once fell asleep inside a ring of flowers in the forest. Had a caterpillar on my face when I woke up. Now, of course, my question there was it looking you in the eye or just wandering around on your cheekbone? But no, if you can fall asleep, then you're obviously in a place that is at least relaxing. And this is a good thing. I don't recall the last time I went for a walk in the forest. Okay. Of course, I think my aversion to it isn't because I don't like the animals there. It's that I don't like the feeling of getting lost. And I do that really, really easily. But when we're now talking about the natural technologies that are involved. Okay. See, I don't know if my favorite was doing what I did, but I spent most of my time as a kid hiding from the rest of the kids. I couldn't deal with them, and I didn't deal much better with the adults. But I will tell you, when you can figure out how to communicate with the animals and the plants, you'll find you're much more at peace with the natural order of things. For me, that's just been the way it's been all my life. Okay. And it gets a little disconcerting for some people. I know like a friend of mine, he used to spend so much time in the woods, he befriended a grizzly bear. Okay, now granted, when he met it was a grizzly bear cub. But every year for 15 years, and he was out and about, that grizzly would come right up to him to say hello. Kind of like the old movie back in the 70s called Grizzly Adams. Okay, and some of you will remember that show. There are real people that can do that. Okay, the biggest thing that I've found is that when you start realizing that people on the whole, have the same capacity for creative endeavors as the off-worlders do. And they do have, all of you have the capacity to understand high tech. Okay. And yeah, I'm telling you, you do. Myself, I've been fighting with computers since I was, well, I'd have been 16 when I ran into my first computer. I still don't handle them well. They still don't do what I'd like. It wouldn't surprise me. I know what you're referring to regarding the Coral Castle. If I recall correctly, YJ, that Coral Castle is down in Florida somewhere, is it not? But what do we got here? I just want to be able to read that a little. Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant was a whole different issue. The funny thing is that the pyramid, okay. Yeah, thank you so much there, Kira. When you look at that, the neat thing with the pyramids, okay, is the pyramids have all these hieroglyphs, which are a language unto themselves. Absolutely. But there's an additional component to the hieroglyphs. And that is the computer relay system built into them. But it is built on the quantum net. It is not built from a technological standpoint as mankind knows it. That's funny. YJ goes, he is referring to the Coral Castle and the Coral Castle. He built it in Florida and then was forced to take it down. And he built it again, just up the road, at night, by himself without being seen. Now, there's a couple of ways he could have done that. One would be through technological enhancement. Two would be through modifying the biomagnetic flux and moving the stuff of his own accord. If he was attuned properly, he could do that. How he did it, I don't know myself. Okay, of course, in all fairness, I wasn't there when he did it. But I absolutely agree, considering I think those doors are swinging on an 8-ton hinge. Now, the fact they swing perfectly balanced is one thing. The fact that it was put together so they could is a whole different ballgame. as one of those things he is likely to take to his grave. Somebody will eventually figure it out again. Okay, because the reality is that once one person knows how to do it, it can be done by somebody else. The question is whether people are going to figure out how to do it on a positive level or on a negative one. The neat part about it is we are looking at a changing world. So many things are shifting gears right now that people are not entirely aware of. Okay, technology is changing. And the reason there is so much of a cross current is because at the same time technology is being altered, so are humans' ability, or so is humans' ability. Yeah, so much for English intense. That ability to manipulate the energetic fields by sheer thought, because that ability is growing so rapidly, amongst the human race. Okay, you run into an interesting little situation. It's called cross current. It's what I call cross current interruption. And yeah, and thank you so much for that there, Kira. I am not a researcher. Heck, I don't even have proper television right now. So, I'm sure you can probably find it on YouTube. But the tech and the way it was done is very much like, and this is one that I came across a while ago. When you look at Stonehenge, beautifully built, but it was the purpose that threw me for a loop when I found out about it. It was laid out, it was oriented perfectly to the stars and what have you. But it was the other purpose that it was put there for that was the fascinating part. The thing is a landing pad. Okay. This is one of the reasons why the different readings go right off the charts when they try taking technology out there to get a reading on it, is because the energy levels in it are such that, because the crystalline alignment inside it is built in such a way as to mess up tarot readings. And wasn't intentionally done that way, because you got to remember the technology at the time to actually pick those emanations up did not exist. But then they weren't looking at it, the builders weren't looking at it from the standpoint of how do we confuse other people. They just looked at it and went, what do we require to make this a charging pad at the same time as its landing pad? Okay, because when it was built, many of the ships that came here were still running on primitive power lines. Many of them did not have the OTE drive, which is a perpetual energy flow. Okay, so we take a look at that, and there are a lot of different sites that, yes, they land on ley lines and this sort of thing. Okay, now, do I know much about the location of ley lines? Again, we have this problem of I don't research. Henry, that stands for the oscillar densification of tritransdensial equilarity. Okay, that's why we call it the OTE drive. Basically, the oscillar densification means the vibratory rate of the energy fans back and forth and alters back and forth, consistently altering between solid, liquid, gaseous, and energy. Okay, the tritransdensial it handles past, present, and future energy, where something was, where it's going to be, and where it is all at the same time, in both time and space. Okay, and then when you go with the equilarity, it's referring to the balance point between all of it. That's fabulous, Kara. The reality is we do require the information on them. One thing I do encourage you to look at while you're looking at the ley lines, and it's just a thought that came to me quite some time ago. take a look at Earth, at the layout of the continents as we know them now. Compare them to the layout of the continents when Pangea, when Earth was covered by one continent, and then cross-reference that with the location of sites like Stonehenge, Machu Picchu. There's another Stonehenge like configuration in southern Scotland. I believe it's southwestern Scotland, just across the border into Scotland. Yeah, the Bermuda Triangle, that's an interesting one. There's a second one. The Northwest Passage has a second Bermuda Triangle in it there, Kira. And there is a third one somewhere over in Europe. Not a geographer here. Okay. Not a map maker. So you're going to have to figure it out. But there's a triangulation point on the other side of the planet. Okay. With a third Bermuda Triangle type setup. That one you get the fun to go and find out. I get a kick out of it. You say there's 12 ley lines there. I find 12 comes up so absolutely, so often in all of the research into the metaphysics. It surprises me. Well, not really. Mankind works with Pythagorean numerology, okay, which goes 1 to 9. I work with universal, which goes 1 to 12. That does not surprise me. Again, this is one of those things that something I get a kick out of, and you might want to look into this. And I might want to turn around and come up with, I don't know, one thought at a time. What do you think? But take a look at the ley lines, if there are any. I'd be fascinated to know if there were any that surfaced at Mount Ararat. At the peak of Mount Ararat. It would be fascinating to find out if there was ley line there, or I suspect that's the one I'm referring to. Okay. Adam, there is one up in the Northwest Passage somewhere. Okay, I just don't know where the Northwest Passage is. It may be the same one you're referring to. But that triangle is as deadly or as confusing as the Bermuda one, just not as highly publicized. Okay. The other spot that would be fascinating to find out if there's a connection in the ley lines would be the Red Sea, specifically about the middle of the Red Sea, where the Egyptians crossed. Okay, I do believe there is an energetic crossover there that made it possible to create that complication. Just something to add to your research while you're doing the book. And an area, a field or a thought line that may not have been dealt with in the past. But no, the Alaskan Triangle, I know that there is a portal. There's a portal at both the South Pole and the North one. But it's a jump point between the South Pole and the North Pole, and vice versa, to avoid having people, shall we say, uninvited, show up in the heart of the underworld, of the inner earth, underworld, underdark, whatever you want to call it. Okay, Hollow Earth is another point. All of these names can be used interchangeably. You get to pick which one you want. Which one you desire to work with. But many of these sites that people are running into, I am firmly convinced have a direct link to them. Okay. And many of them are built. When I talk about technology in this case, understand if you take the right stones, and this is why a crystal computer works so much better than a than a wired computer. This is why they are including crystals in many of the new electronics that are coming out, because they find them working out much better. Very nicely done there, Henry. I just noticed that Henry's gone and typed in, literally, the oscillatory densification of the tritransdimensional equipolarity. Now, I discussed this particular topic with somebody that, as it turned out, it took me 2 hours to explain it to them, because I didn't have the words for it, because I'm not trained in that field. But 2 hours on the phone with somebody, that had their masters in rocketry and astrophysics, to find out that what I was talking about, they barely touched the surface of in their final trimester. Now, what have we got here? Well, thank you so much for that, Nathan. I appreciate that. I don't have the crystals. I'm not even entirely certain which ones I'm looking for yet. But I do have the layout here for a crystalline computer that works better than the modern computers. Of course, you're not going to be able to tap into it on the internet. You'll have to deal with the neural net. Okay. But it's a crystalline, what you're looking for. And I'm starting to do the research to piece together which crystals I'm looking at. But you're looking for double terminates in order to make it work right. Oh, absolutely, Kara. Thank you so much for joining. Your insight has been absolutely incredible. Really appreciate it. So absolutely enjoy your dinner. Well, this is the thing, Nathan. This is why when Independence Day came out, and they went, "Oh, we're going to upload a virus from our Terran computer to their biomagnetic flux computer on our biomagnetic holographic interface to make their computer sick." I'm thinking, there's a problem here. It's kind of like hooking up an abacus to an IBM. Somehow there may be a communication glitch. Yeah, Nathan goes, then again, you're not going to get on TikTok with a crystal-based computer, with a crystal-based machine. Not a prayer. Yeah, I have no doubt you did, Nathan. I mean, it was a great show, don't get me wrong. I loved the concept. I loved the show. It was fabulous. It was a bit shocking when they went into orbit. That was a personal uh-oh from my end, because that brought back a flood of memories. But, when we start looking at the way technology works, we have to realize that people are absolutely running circles around themselves, tripping over each other and themselves for that matter, trying to make sure. What do we got here? They use power of an Apple 520C laptop. Oh, okay. Henry goes, in Elden Ring, there's an elevator that travels so far underground, the ride lasts for almost a minute. You end up in a net of humongous caverns, big enough to house whole cities kilometers underground. Oh yeah, this is why I say the underground, what you might not realize is you may have dropped, and that thing may have dropped into an active city. In the world underground, they have the capacity to make things invisible to the naked and auditory eye. And most humans don't have a sense of smell good enough to work with. Yeah, now there's a frightening thought. I know of one that they did an absolute fabulous job where they theorized dropping an elevator so far into the earth that gravity reversed. Okay, which is a bit disconcerting when you think about it. But this technology, again, does exist. Mankind's got access to some of it. They just don't realize what they're looking at, nor the value of it or the technological potential of it. Okay. It does if I spoke Chinese. You know? Henry's just going, elevator to China sounds good. It sounds great. Yeah, the only problem that I can say, there's two problems. One, I don't speak Chinese, so I'm thinking I might be at a loss there. Two, what happens if it gets stuck halfway? You might be in trouble. You know, I mean, I'm not exactly claustrophobic, but I'm certainly not interested in dying dying in a hole. You know, even if it's an elevator shaft. You know, but there is something when you look at it, something else that already exists is what many people call a boom tube. Okay, where you literally you're standing on a 0 g gram on a on a graveler sheet. Okay, where you step on it and you're gone. Works really well, but can be upsetting to the stomach. It's pretty much the same as it is on Earth. There is a balancing crystal down there. Well, actually, in all fairness, it's not a crystal. But that literally, they say the heart of Earth is a molten core. Well, it is, especially given what it was. Okay, the whole thing, the whole core of Earth, the whole undercarriage of it, is a massive vat of crystals and caverns that are designed to dissipate the excess heat. Okay, you don't want to go to the center of the earth because, in all fairness, you're not likely going to survive the trip. Okay, but with this in mind, guys, I really want to say thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your time with me. Okay, I'm bringing this to a close. If you like the stream, absolutely do give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out if you would be so kind as to do so. And let's just take a look at one little factor here. Tomorrow is Saturday. So tomorrow we will be discussing this neat little idea of preparing or setting things up for your next life. I'll talk to you about some of what I've got set up in motion, what I've got planned. Now, of course, the reality is I can't prove it. What I can prove, is this funny little book here. Once you get this sorted out in your own head, there is virtually nothing you won't be able to accomplish. The companion to that one is this one here. Both of these are available directly from me. And I just spoke to somebody today about the possibility of them doing an audio version of those two. Now, they're short, which is why it'll be easier to do. You know, and it's not because I don't have to look at different voices for different people. Okay, I'm certainly not going to be doing the reading. That's just not going to happen. Because I'll tell you, you've heard the way I talk. I read just about as poorly. But tomorrow we're going to talk about how to go about setting up for your next life starting today. Well, it'll be starting tomorrow, but you get the idea. In any event, guys, I'm going to call it a night. Until then, until we meet again, take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive